Hi, so this is a kettlebell workout video, and we're going to learn how to get a really good kettlebell workout using a kettlebell and a trampoline. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to set your goal for the workout session to be getting past what I'll call the inner wall. That's this kind of like wall of pain and limitation inside of you. I think it might be the wall of the heart, I'm not sure, but it's this like, there is just this wall, there's just this boundary inside of you, and it's your limit. And so you're going to want to try and get on the other side of that. So the wall, like you can find it, like stretching, you can do cardio enough to where you're like, oh, I can't go any further, and then that's your sort of wall. But like if you know where your wall is, you can just go to it really easily. Like an inexperienced person doesn't know where their limitations are, and so you have a hard time finding the inner wall or the heart, right? But if you find your limitation, you know right where it is. And so what's that made out of? Right? What am I talking about? What is it made of? It's your limitation, right? So it's going to be materially, not optimal, dry, fibrotic tissue in the body. Like, and it's going to be, it's your limitation. So it's tissue in the body with some kind of pathology. It's not working right, and so when you move, it's holding you back. So that's when it's there. And then this limitation is also, there's other ways to describe it, but for kettlebell, right, we'll just stick with like find that physical limitation. And for most of us, that's going to be like, this is a rehab video, so you're looking at, there's going to be damaged tissue, scar tissue, just things with improper hydration, improper metabolism. And so if you increase your blood pressure, like exercise a ton, it's kind of hard to find inner heart videos because you're either sitting like in total silence because you like found it, or you're having to like do something quite a bit, right? So if you increase your blood pressure, you move around, you'll find that it starts to slosh or to press the totality of your metabolism against that inner wall or against that limitation. And what that does, especially if you get your heart rate up, if you get your oxygen up, if you get your blood pressure up, it pushes, especially if you direct it with your mind, it pushes water, consciousness into the limitation. And so that's how to get like past is to go into it. People try and get around the limitation, right? That's like, oh, how do I get into this posture? How do I get around the limitation? But if you find that you're actually like, what am I looking for? I'm actually looking for the limitation itself, and then I can use different movements to run into it. And if you get the consciousness into the limitation, then you start to be able to move from there again. And then it's no longer a limitation. It'll go away, like it will vanish. And so that's all people are doing when you're correctly exercising. You'll have a limitation, and you'll go into it, and then it won't be a limitation anymore. And that's what happens when you see people like transform, is that they actually found and went into their limitation. So sometimes, like if this was heavier, right, I could use it to go into my limitation of, boom, like this is about to break my arm, right? And I could, I can find my limitation in movement. Like, oh, there's the limit of my movement. And go into that, right? Where's the limit of my movement if I'm using a kettlebell to find it? And it's going to be out. Like, you're not going to press this in a way to where it's like, all I'm just going to do as much weight. What's the way that I press this so that I can lift the heaviest amount of weight? That's a dumb way to use the kettlebell, right? Because you're not, like, the goal of an exercise is not just to lift the most amount of weight. The only time that lifting a number is important is if, like, there's a reason to move that weight over there. Like, oh, I need to move this 300-pound refrigerator. I need to move this 2,000-pound car. Why? For a reason. That's the only other time you would ever, like, lift just to lift exertion. Otherwise, you're using the iron, you're using the steel to find your limitation and to go into it so that it's no longer a limitation. And so for the most part, there's like having to find, like making your limitation like a 900-pound bench press. There's so many other limitations around you to like focus in on finding limitation there with just increasing weight is retarded. And so like with kettlebell, you're going to want to pick something like, heavy enough that you're going to bump into a limitation pretty easily, but not so heavy that you can't explore like where, like if I just move it out even a little bit, there's a huge amount of limitation just with 20 pounds or whatever. I'm completely limited much past there, right? Especially to do reps. So it's like, it's so easy to find that limitation, and also you're trying to go into it. So if you can move the limitation, if you can apply pressure to it consistently, gently, just to get like basically your focus, your consciousness, your awareness, the water, to get the water into that part of the body where there's a limit, where there's a weakness. And then even over time, you're like, if you start moving from there, it draws more awareness, more water to the area, and the limitation will become like a habitation. It'll become a seat of consciousness rather than something in your consciousness that you're moving around. It'll be something that you are, something that you are moving with. Right, like if you're, and that's just, part of that is like muscle recruitment, or like like using the body physically. Am I using it to move, or am I moving it around? That's the difference of the body. If somebody's gone deeply into like removing their limitations, and if somebody's healthy, there's not a lot of limit. Like it's pretty open-ended. So some limitations are like skill, like can I juggle 9 balls? And so there's a limitation, like go into it. If you're going into that pressure, that intensity, that focus that you would apply to like juggling, because I can't juggle, or oh, I can't play chess, that's to get into those problems deeply, you're having that you're applying the pressure to the brain a lot. Yeah, I don't know. And so that's true for like all exercise equipment, is that you're using the equipment to kind of knead or massage or enter into limitation more easily. And so a lot of this stuff only matters for people like elite athletes or people that are not limited very much. Like it requires a certain amount of creativity to like find a limit within the bounds of civilized society. Right? A lot of people that are into like outlandish, crazy stuff, it's just because they're not smart enough to like the limitations right here. You can find the wall of the heart right here without the extreme behavior. Right? The extreme behavior is just retards that are doing the same thing of like, oh, I found a way to like hit my limit. It feels great. Like, oh, I'm gonna lift up 1,000 pounds for no reason to know where, just because number big. Right? Like, I mean, that's great. Maybe there's not a limitation there. Maybe they just love number big, heavy. Some people probably do. Like, it's sweet. I'm not even dissing it. It's like not even bad. It's awesome to lift heavy because it's like, there's gyms and there's places where they make it easy to go find your limit up to like 500 pounds or more. But, you know, and like you can even catch it like on the bones and feel like, oh man, my skeletal structure. I found the limit of my skeletal structure. That's another cool limit. So when you find that, then you get bone density growth, right? This process goes all the way of consciousness. You're like there. The more that you bash into or weight down things, like including the bone, the bones get denser, the muscles get more alive. There's more life, there's more prana in everything. Like the bones come alive. Like dead bones are really brittle, strong bones are much, much harder. Why is that? Because they're interacting. Like even at the skeletal layer, you're interacting with the world. Like your consciousness, your awareness is the thing making even something as like hard and rigid and like faded as your skeleton. Like your skeleton's not gonna move, but you're there choosing not to let it break. Right? Even it can only shape itself kind of slowly over time, probably, but so yeah, it's the same thing with like, okay, so skeletal development is all I'm saying, right? I'm applying pressure to my skeleton. That weight is actually like pushing consciousness into my bones, and so they respond. So that's a cool thing to do with a kettlebell. And yeah, so everything I'm doing would be way more effective if my heart rate was way up. Or if I was like, and why is my heart rate up? Oh, I'm trying to pressurize my blood and cycle my nutrients. I'm not just trying to get my heart rate up. I want to pressurize my blood, cycle my nutrients. And like maybe I can do that without. And so the whole when you're exercising, it's like, oh, why am I exercising? To get my heart rate up, you know? Why am I lifting up the weight? Oh, to get strong. Like, no, you're using the weight to find your limitations. You're getting your heart rate up. No, you're cycling nutrients with increased blood pressure to force your consciousness into deeper areas of the body for deeper muscular recruitment. That's what's going on when you're exercising. Unless you're an idiot. And like a lot of people are, don't even feel bad. And I'm offering to let yourself be an idiot. You have to admit you were smart enough to see through the bullshit that you're doing. And the only way to like willfully quit or improve things is to take the position of retard. Right? It's not even an insult. It's not an insult, because ultimately everyone's going for limitation. So it's like, by saying retarded, I'm saying you're limited, and it's right here, right? And it's so close. You can touch it with a kettlebell, but you could also, like, it's not hard to find the limitation of the walls of the heart, and try and press into it. Like, oh, the walls of my heart are moving through my awareness, or my awareness is moving around that wall. Is it going into it? No, it's mostly flowing around it. Okay, how do I get it into it? It's almost like it's a waiting, it's a being there with it, right? And so maybe, like, if you know your limits, like running, and you're like, I'm at my limit, and then you're there, and then you go, I'm gonna be at my limit for 5, 6, 7 miles. Oh, I just won a contest, right? The only way that that's healthy is if you're using running to make your limit larger, to make your limit easier to be with. The reason that you're running the miles is to be with your weakness in an easier way. Normally your weakness is too small to see, so you choose the challenge to see and be with the weakness. If you're doing the challenge to win the challenge, or burn or like become a thing, right, to get the body or to get the whatever, if you're not using it to be with it, your weakness may very well be that you're stupid, fat, and disgusting. Then be with that weakness. You're doing the activity to feel that weakness even more, because you're in denial of it. So you do the thing that you're good at. You hang out with the people that make you feel retarded. You do the activity that makes you feel like a fat, disgusting slob. Like, oh, I can bear, like, whatever it is, or I'm bouncing on this thing and all my everything is flopping up and down. My brain's so weak, I can't juggle, I can't solve problems, whatever. Things don't make sense, I can't read. Right? The weakness is right there. So you do the activities to find the weakness, and it's like crap, like, at least video games kind of present a thing to where you can see, oh, I'm losing, so at least you're there with your weakness. No cost. Oh, why do I do the Tai Chi? Oh, why? Because, like, it just, right, moving a little bit, I don't have to move very much, just enough to find, there's my weakness. And if I stay with it for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, no matter what, like, if I stay with my weakness for that long, there's a reward, because by persistence you soak into it, you saturate it. And so then your training bears fruit from the consciousness going into the weakness. So you could learn a gazillion different things, or you could just feel, oh, there's my weakness. And then you just have to go, oh, okay, what do I have to do that'll make me sit and stay with that weakness for 10, 20 minutes, right? So some people will go, oh, here's a good way to stay with your weakness. Try and sit down and have no thoughts. And you're like, oh my God, I'm so weak. And if you see that lack of control that you have over your mind and you stay with it, it's the same as running. It's the same weakness. But you have to actually sit with how distracted you are. And most people can't do that any more than they can get the stuff out of the exercise programs. So a lot of people that are very, very good at things are actually incredibly far away from the heart. And so, like, having somebody, like, clearly point out to you that you're retarded is literally them offering you the heart, their heart, your heart, and saying, like, here you go, you know? But some people are too stupid to understand that. And then, I don't know.